there, welcome back to our show. Today I'm going to talk about Matewan, which is the film by John Sayles in the mid-80s that came out during the era of Reagan and all the kind of mass capitalism, capitalism's god, all this nonsense, and offered a corrective about unions, the need for unions in certain areas. Now, this is a terrific film. It's a nice, Mixtape Films has a nice package. You get some interviews, you get a nice print. So it's highly recommended for people in Britain. The Criterion did one for America, which apparently has more extras. But if you're in Britain, that's still a good copy of the film to get. Nicely photographed and everything looks good. But yeah, so back to the point. It was about unions at a time where there was a lot of union busting. Now, the film is actually much more complicated about unions and what they're about than you'd think. It's not... Sayles, as a director, is not someone who takes any side. He's looking at how the structures of the society works and why they work and why they don't work, and what's been brought in to deal with them and what's not been brought in to deal with them. So this is a film about union, but it was actually shot non-union because the union... specifics of how to unionise for a film would make it impossible to shoot. So John Sayles shoots low budget, and he hires people who are very good at their job but are making films under difficult circumstances, and they're all like people who know what they're in for before they go into it. So it's that kind of thing. It's like as he's pointed out before, the union stuff for film industry is good if you're shooting in a studio or a big studio production because it's very definable who does what. But in a low budget independent film, it's completely useless to haven't adjusted to what these kind of productions need. And that's just a little aside. It's about the complexity of a union. So I just brought that up to show that he's not like a campaigner for the unions. He's actually just looking at the phenomenon of unions and when they come into America and what they're about and how they help and hinder labour disputes, but also about how the why the labour disputes start and the horrible things that some of the management will do to screw over their workers. So this is like an extreme version because this is the robber baron era where people in power who had the money felt quite good to hire what they call detective agencies, which are basically security agencies in modern times, who could go in and do what they're bidding. So the famous one was the Pinkerton, so they're not in this film, who would go and do the bidding for the robber barons. This one is the Baldwin Trust. And this is a group of detectives who, supposedly detectives, but they're really just enforcers, who come in at the union's bidding to try and break up a unionised striking force. So you don't actually see the owners. What you see are the people they hire to deal with this. And the film makes it clear there's lots of disputes all over the country. There's a lot. Every time there's a union dispute, basically the papers are owned by the robber barons who say this is communism. This is like they're trying to take away all your money, blah blah blah. When in fact they're just trying a living wage. That's all they're trying to do. They're not like insanely ambitious. They just want not to be screwed around to the point they're basically slaves. Because the robber barons, when they come in, this is how they replace slavery. They used to have slavery where they could have black people doing all this horrible work for almost nothing. And that's how they got the profits. Now after the Civil War, they had to find another way to actually get the profits, which was basically you're paying people, but you've got all these different things like you work for the company, so you buy stuff in the company store, You're located in the company housing, so if you get fired or if you fall ill, you can get chucked at your home. All of these things that the company did, so that basically they were limited in much that they pay you. You had to make so much, bring out so much coal as a coal miner per week to justify them keeping you hired. So it's basically slavery in a different way, and you basically never get that much money from it. And it was very difficult to leave the area if you were decided to move on because of all these restrictions. So it's another version of slavery, which they found, and in this, for beginning this film, the people on the mines have had enough. They've just had enough of this nonsense. It's like, we're going to strike because we need to make a living wage. We're not asking for much. And they show you in the first scene how horrible it is for people in the mines, how difficult it can be, like how it absolutely destroys your lungs, it destroys everything, all your health. And you're doing it for your family, and the family ends up in the mines too. And it's just like it is just like a horrible existence, and they're just asking for basic wages. So into this situation comes two different sides. You've got the union side represented by Chris Cooper in his film debut, and you've got the side of the union busters, and that's led by Kevin T, who's who you probably have seen as a villain in lots of films. And they're both coming in, and they've both got different agendas. The union guy, Chris Cooper, is coming in to try and talk to them. I mean, also say you cannot resort to violence in this situation. Violence is what will make the owners go to the government, bring in troops, force you back to work, or just shoot you. You have to just cut them off. They can't get scabs. Just make sure that everybody comes in is unionised, and that'll stop them. That'll make them have to pay a living wage, which is a very difficult thing for people to understand, is because they're very working class now. They have to fight for their existence, and they're saying to him, you can see all this, but you're going to leave eventually and go to another union situation. Well, we're stuck here, and we have to live here, and it's not exactly the same thing, and we have to try and fight our way through this to try and get our rights. So there's always the thing of him trying to dissolve any potential for violence. They're also bringing in different miners. They bring in some miners from Europe, people who have come from Europe, who've just emigrated from Europe to America, who don't have any money, so they're brought in to be miners for this group. And there's also the black miners who come in because they've been they're just brought in as scabs, and then when they realise what's happened, they were just brought in to make a living, and suddenly realise what's going on and how terrible the conditions are there. They realise that they're in a situation that's impossible for them. So Cooper has to try and bring all these people together and get them focused on the principles of what's best for the community, and for all of them, not just the tribes of different people, whether it be the Europeans, the native mountain people, or the black workers. They all have to come together. So he has that task. On the other side, Kevin Teague has the task of breaking this up and enforcing laws and throwing people out of their homes, and basically he's like a World War II veteran, World War One veteran. I mean, I guess it takes place in just after World War One, and he's just off. He gets a kick out of cruelty. He knows his job is to be cruel, and he's basically a license to be cruel, and he will take that and run with it. So apparently, according to Sayles, they had to tone this down because the actual guys were actually worse. When the film came out, the only criticism it got was, yeah, the villains are a bit much, and it's like that's a tame version of the villains. They were actually much worse in real life. So you have this two-pronged attack on the people who are living there. So you have like different people. Mary McDonald as a hotel owner who is trying to keep her son, who is a miner, out of trouble. You've got various miners who you start to recognise. as characters throughout the film, some young ones and some older ones who have a bit more experience. You've got a union organizer who turns out to be a turncoat and is not really for them, and it takes part of the plot to work out what he's about. But when you see the actor, it's like, oh, he's not who he says he is, because he's been a villain in so many films. Bob Gunton is the actor's name. He's been a villain in so many films. As soon as you see him, think villain. And it's just waiting for that to unravel. But how it unravels is really well done, and there's a lot of suspense involved, and there's a lot of great character moments involved. So the film is about the difficulty ultimately of forming a union in a situation that's horrible, and what are the motivations of the different people involved, and what do they want, and what's the difficulties for them, and what do they attain at the end of the day. Because this leads to violence, of course, but the miners don't get much out of it ultimately. They get slightly better wages eventually, but they don't really get much for a long time. So there's a lot of blood, a lot of anger, and for nothing. And the film's much more about the how both sides are set up and how they operate. So you've got a mayor and a sheriff. The sheriff's played by David Strathern in one of his early parts. And Strathern actually starts off looking like a you're thinking he's going to work for the company, but it turns out he's actually much more loyal to the miners because he's one of them. And it's like, how does he navigate dealing with these thugs that come into town? So he's almost like the first barrier against them. And the mayor's just been like rolled over by the mining company, and he has to resist as well, even though he's not really up to it. So there's a lot of really good characters, and you see the nuance of all the different perspectives, and you get the sense of who Chris Cooper's character is, who's not he's complicated in a sense of the people look up to him and see he's got logic to him, and he means the best, but also say he will move on, because this is just one operation for him among many. He's got an idealistic view of the world that's might not be realistic at the time. So there's lots of different motivations going throughout the film, which is what's wonderful about the film. Is just like this. It's about the characters. It's about the hotel owner played by Mary McDonald and her dealing with her son, and she has to deal with the company people who live in the hotel, and they are cruel. You've got Chris Cooper's character. You've got James L. Jones as the head of the black miners, and he's much more complicated. He's someone who's been around, and he's an experienced miner, and he also just been experienced in life, and he can look and see where this is going, and where they can get involved and where they can't get involved. And there's just lots of wonderful nuances throughout the film, and everything comes down to human nature and how human beings can behave, either good or bad, because it's not about the mechanism. Ultimately, it's about how human beings survive within a mechanism of early 20th century capitalism, which is basically one step away from slavery. And it's like these are the steps are taken towards unionisation to protect workers, and why it was necessary. So this is an excellent film. There's some great performances throughout. There's some it's shot by Hexel Wexler, who is a notable lefty cameraman, directed photography, who also directed. So he came in and did it for pretty much nothing. There's production design's wonderful. They went to a town that was pretty much abandoned, and they spruced it up to make it look like a working mining town, but it still looked run down to our eyes, so it worked out beautifully. The action scenes are terrific when they appear, which is not very often, but when they appear, they are brutal and all about character rather than any excitement, or all about just how horrible a gunfight is. So it's always like waiting for the eventual gunfight to happen rather than actually happening early. It's like everything's building. And people do things that are horrific. There's one or two little bits of firefight before that, but they're not really action scenes, they're just like chaos. So this is a wonderful film. I highly recommend it. It's available in Criterion in America. It's available on 88 Films in Britain. I'd definitely suggest go and find it. It is just a wonderful film. So I managed to watch it on a projector and see it on a bigger screen, because the last time I saw it was years ago and it was a small TV and it didn't do the film very much justice. So it was nice to see it proper in the way it was intended. So this is a high recommendation. Please go see the film. Right, bye for now.